right, folks, welcome to episode 2 of Sideways Rain. We're really excited to be here for what's going to be a great podcast. You know, we have our first guest today. I will tell you a little bit about him in a minute. But first, just to set it up, startups and young businesses faced a unique kind of sideways rain, unpredictable markets, fierce competition, and the constant battle for attention. Today, we're going to dive into PR and how it can help businesses not just survive the storm, but thrive in it.
For sure. Whether you're a startup, whether you're a seasoned business, PR is super important. And eventually the rain will come. And that's where you need PR on your side and a good PR strategy at that. So with that being said, here comes the rain.
Our guest today is Joe Krasean, a PR pro with a global perspective. Joe's based in Karlsruhe, Germany. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. I'm not German, but by way of Minnesota, actually, I know Joe all the way back to college, so we go a ways back. Joe's worked with startups across fintech, edtech, climate tech, helping them navigate the wild world of public relations. He freelances with companies like Black Unicorn PR, guiding businesses through the art and chaos of getting the right kind of media attention, which is what we want, the right kind, not the wrong kind. So today he's here to break down who needs PR, how startups can use it effectively, and the biggest mistakes to avoid. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. Welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
All right, cool. So
second episode, but I'm the first guest.
First guest.
You official
okay.
First guest.
Yeah. So.
It's like those YouTube comments where somebody gets the first one. Like I'm just going to claim that I'm first.
We'll get you a patch and a members only jacket. So you can have it. So just to kick us off and level set, Joe, what types of companies benefit from PR?
I think any company can do PR. PR is such a broad thing. Where do we start talking about it?
Maybe like people mix up PR and marketing. So how do we differentiate?
They sure do.
Yeah.
I would look at PR as, public relations. So that could be anything. And we do a very specific kind of PR. So maybe my perspective is not the broadest, but, we have a lot of experience with startups specifically. So one of the things we recommend with a lot of our clients is if they're just too young or too small, it doesn't make sense to apportion any of their budget to PR because it's not going to be worth it. They need to have more product development. They need to have more history. They need to have better funding. So there's like the too small companies, and then there's the really big companies, which should probably have like internal PR departments at a certain point, and not contract with agencies necessarily. Could be argued. And then we're like right in this broad middle where the companies are big enough to be ready for media attention and be ready for that public scrutiny. But they're not quite big enough to like take on an entire communications department for themselves. And we're kind of right there in the middle. And we've had companies that we work with that have just grown up out of our services and haven't needed us anymore because they started taking on some of those internal teams. And we've had companies that we do little one-off projects with and we say, come back to us after you grow. So we, in our sort of area, we look for that kind of middle, which is a big middle. It's a large area.
Yeah. So when I originally thought of PR a few years ago, before we hired a PR firm here at 180, my head just went to press releases. Yeah, that's what they do. Yep. That's what they help us with. But they do so much more. So what are you actually helping your clients do in this space?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of confusion from a lot of the clients we work with. The ones who get it, though, I think, press releases is part of the mix, but really it's just a broader readiness to invite the media into your company and to open yourselves up to that kind of scrutiny, make yourself press friendly, make yourself a company that's ready to be useful to journalists, to be an expert source of commentary, to have comments in broader articles about other topics, to be a thought leader and have kind of your op-eds published. And then, yes, hopefully a steady stream of press releases as well, partnership announcements, new product releases. It's a lot of stuff. We tend to focus very specifically on media relations though with our agency. So we don't do like stunts or like, I don't even know some of the people what they're expecting when they come. They want to PR something, and it's like we don't just throw PR at stuff. We work very specifically with journalists, and we're not doing the stuff where like a company released 1,000 frogs into the river today and something. Like we don't do any of that stunt kind of stuff.
Sure.
Um, so it's just about like how can you make yourself useful to journalists,
Yeah.
and what journalists are writing about your industry and what are they writing about, and how can you insert yourself into that conversation?
So, as it relates to Sideways Rain, obviously there's a crisis piece of this, and crisis communication can be key, especially when you get negative press that wasn't intended. So, how do PR folks like yourself develop clear and immediate responses to crises?
Avoid crises. Really want to like try to not get there in the press. I mean, you guys know a reputation is a hard thing to build,
Yeah.
and it can be destroyed really easily. Maybe destroyed is a strong word, but um, on my side, we're just very careful about the clients we pick. I mean, we don't work with shady companies. We don't work with people that are at the fringes of anything. Like we work with very solid companies that are building next generation technology products, whatever it is, whatever industry they're in. So don't be shady is the first thing I would say. Don't be a shady company, and try to avoid crises. But they pop up, and we've done a lot of crisis comms. It's something that has to be part of your mix. You have to be ready for it. If you're working in PR, and every company like you guys are talking about faces these kind of challenges. So with crisis comms, that's where you really want to have a PR team.
Yeah.
That's one where if you're not working with PR, it's almost like it's going to feel like it's too late because you're not going to be wanting to search for one at that point. So um, that's where having one already is going to be fantastic because you want to be able to move quickly. You want to be able to respond or give a response to the media in a way that's going to be transparent and future proof, and also not make things worse, right? And you're really going to want the kind of copywriters and account people and media relations people that understand like how these things have to get disseminated. So avoid crises and have a PR team. I don't know if that
No,
advice is helpful at all.
that's great advice. Joe, question for you. In terms of companies, whether they're startups or established businesses that are scaling quickly, are you able to highlight some of the pitfalls that these companies could experience if they're not considering or prioritizing PR? And like when those crises do happen, what have you kind of seen in your experience for these companies and kind of how it sets them back?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're not in the PR mix, I think that the first thing you got to look at really is like, are you in an industry that would even make sense in? And Howard, I think you and I talked about this months ago. There is media, for example, in the event space where you work. Is it super broad? Is it super robust? Yeah, maybe medium, but is it super important for the 180 group to be there, or that do you need to be there? And is that going to help your bottom line? I mean, it's hard to give a solid numerical ROI on any of these things with PR because it's all kind of reputation based. But if you look at the media in your industry, and there's just not a lot of conversations going on around that, then maybe it's just doesn't make like not every company needs to have this active media relations thing going. But other industries like fintech, for example, which you mentioned, like there's super robust
Yeah.
media channels, just every imaginable geography and type of fintech stuff going on. And fintech touches on all kinds of other industries as well. Gaming is a huge industry,
Yeah.
marketing, climate tech is huge. So if you're in one of these industries where people are writing about that stuff and there is active conversation somewhere, um, then it's kind of a shame if you're not part of it. Or if you look and your competition is in it, then it's like you should be there too,
Yep.
you know? So that's not a crisis per se. It's more just like a lost opportunity.
Right.
Um, If the crises do come,
We're gonna try to stay away from
yeah.
them.
I mean, a lot of them are very common. The stuff that pops up is like security breaches, data security breaches.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Getting hacked is like a really common one. Or reporters love to like reach out to companies like, "Hey, we heard about there was a data breach or something," and it seems juicy. In my experience, like 90% of the time, it's not juicy at all, and it's some third party vendor, service provider, something got it wasn't had nothing to do with the company you're working with, and you just release like a very plain worded statement like, this happened. It wasn't from us. We didn't cause it. It didn't affect us. It doesn't affect our customers. This is just part of doing business in this industry. Something very straightforward where the journalists get it and they're like, okay, I can't use this. They're not involved.
Right on.
And then it doesn't touch you. Like you just want to like have that stuff not touch you as much as possible.
That's an interesting topic too. That'd be great for a future episode. We're constantly monitoring that here, and we're relatively small potatoes, but we're getting DDoS'd or trying to get attacked from Russia, China, trying to hit our servers almost every single day, multiple times a day. And it'd be interesting to talk about that in a future episode and yeah, how it ties to PR. But this next topic I'm sort of acutely interested in too for Chris and I, being in sort of startup mode with Wift. But how do startups position themselves as thought leaders when you know you have a great product and you just need to get the word out?
Yeah. So, I mean, PR is public relations, and like I talked about, we focus specifically on the media and having a robust Rolodex filled with contemporary journalists that are publishing, and that's something a PR agency can really help with. If that's not in the budget, or you're just not at that point where that makes sense yet, there's still public stuff you can take care of on your site. All your owned media channels, from the stuff that's on your homepage to social media stuff, that's all stuff you can dial in without a PR agency. And having, it can be even little things like on your homepage. We tell all of our clients, like, make something at the top tab that says about us. And just imagine yourself in the position of a journalist going to your homepage. How quickly can they get to like what they want to find out? What would a journalist want to find out? When were you founded? How much funding do you have? Do you have any marquee clients? What else has been written about you? Make that stuff like quickly available. Make it easy for journalists to interact with you and to find materials that they might need if they're assembling an article. Could be specifically about you or something in the industry. So having like press kit assets, like founder photos, team photos, logos and PNG files with different transparent backgrounds. It seems like kind of
Sure.
technical, nerdy stuff, but it's easy to do, and journalists use this stuff, right?
Just make it easy
So
for the
having,
journalist. Yeah.
yeah, make it easy for them, like having that stuff, like journalists know what to look for too. If they see an about us, like that's what they're scanning for that. They don't want to search for it. They don't want to go down to the bottom bar. Just put it up there and use that page to like highlight anytime you make it in the media, any press wins, like put those there too. Like share those media logos. It goes both ways,
Yeah.
right? So if the media publishes on you, like share their logos on your website too. They like that promotion too. And then socials is a big thing as well. Like journalists tend to hang out on Twitter, or X
X.
as we should call it now. Different topic. And LinkedIn is obviously super important too for startups
Yeah.
and for investors. Like LinkedIn is kind of where investors tend to hang out. So get on there and make sure your profiles are robust enough, detailed enough, or have links to where that information can be found.
Right on.
I mean, don't make people work for it. And that's a lot of like low hanging fruits that we advise every client on. It's just being like, that's easy stuff you can take care of, and it should be there. It should be like there before you even start that media journey.
We didn't necessarily
Definitely.
talk about this ahead of time, but something that just popped in my head and from my experience is the media can give you legitimacy for sure, like an earned article in a paper or an electronic magazine, etc., can automatically give you legitimacy because somebody's writing about you, somebody paid attention to you. On the other end of the spectrum, there's paid media, and how are end users perceiving paid media? Because to me, sometimes it could have a negative effect versus a positive one if they know you paid to be there.
Yeah, right. That's a good question, and it's a tricky one. It's something we deal with all of our clients as well. we work very closely with our clients, usually with the C-level people, like right away, because startups are small and we're not being filtered through different departments. We also work with marketing people, but um, for a CEO or
Oh, looks like Joe froze up there. So just give us a second while we figure this out. Stand by. I'm going to go to logo. All right, we're back. As you can see, we're embracing the chaos here. Joe's in Germany. We got a little sideways rain coming at us with the internet, and now he's in a different room. So we get to tour
same
Joe's
room. This
Joe's
is the
house
same
today.
room. Nothing happened.
Same room. Joe, we were talking a little bit about paid media and its effect that it can have in the market.
I think paid ops are good. It would be something to consider as marketing budgets grow. I don't think it would be the first thing you want to look at, and it really depends on the publication as well. I think some publications, like if you see a paid op in the New York Times, it just makes you feel like I don't want to read that. It just looks shady or weird somehow. It looks like an article, but it's not an article, and you just get annoyed with that company
Yeah.
immediately. But other publications like trade media publications, it doesn't hit the same because these are mostly B2B audiences and they understand like people use these opportunities to just do straight messaging for their company, right? And it's a little more, I think it just hits a little different in trade media. And there's some benefits too. Like if you do one of these paid ops with a publication, like it doesn't mean you're automatically going to have a direct line to the editorial room because you're actually working with the sales team for those. It's a totally different team. It's not the same people, but they remember you. They're like, these guys supported us. That's cool. So you're going to have like a little bit more of goodwill that you've generated with that publication. So it's definitely something to consider as you grow, I would say.
Awesome. Joe, in terms of founders and co-founders of successful businesses or even startups, typically those people are the most in the spotlight when it comes to looking at a business and how it's run, what the story is behind it, things of that nature. Can you touch on the importance of founders and co-founders from businesses sharing their personal stories from a PR perspective? And one, is that important in the PR journey? And two, what is the reception of that? Is it always good? Is there sometimes where a personal story may not be the best thing to share from a business perspective? Are you able to touch on those things?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you just can't underestimate the importance of a good spokesperson, right? Like it's just a critical role in PR. And I recommend finding the best one in your company. It doesn't have to be the CEO. We have some shy CEOs that just stay out of the spotlight, and then the CTO kind of runs that side of things. But I would find the best one, and I would try to focus as a young company, as a young startup, try to focus all of the spokesperson stuff on that one person. Like, don't spread it out too thin. Like, I don't know the CTO of Facebook, or like, most companies get one, right? And you should try to
Mm-hmm.
focus on one as well. And then, yeah, absolutely. I mean, personal stuff, if it makes sense, if it's part of the narrative, I think there's more importantly just that this person can telegraph a kind of authenticity or a kind of logic to the narrative. Like, this is why we're doing this. This is why this is important to us. This is why I'm doing this. I could be doing other stuff, or I was doing other stuff before I left a successful company to start this company because this is how important this is to me. Um, they don't got to talk about their kids and like really personal stuff necessarily, unless that's also like a logical part of the narrative. But it should be transparent in a way, and it should be palpable. Like people should be able to feel that authenticity from that person. You don't want to be too polished and have too much like talking points kind of stuff, especially at the
Right.
startup level. Like we don't show up as the PR agency. We don't sit over the shoulders. Like we just put the CEOs right in the room with the journalists, and that's the kind of direct connection that people like about startups. They don't want to go through all the corporate stuff, and they don't want to go through the blah blah. They want to get the real narratives from real people that are trying to build stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I can say, speaking for both of us, JR, that's kind of been our journey with Wift.
Yeah.
I feel like we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from one, having expertise in the space, but also being that those feet on the ground that are trying to build and solve problems. it builds a sense of understanding and relatability, and it's been huge in driving our path forward. So
100%.
definitely agree on that.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. And I think that's like one of my favorite things about working with startups. Like, I don't know if I'd want to do corporate PR because, I mean, I've never done it, so I can't say for sure, but I'm a narrative guy and I just love those narratives, right? Like, I love that I get to work so closely with real business leaders. I mean, these are like big deals that are happening, big levels of fundraising, and we're like directly with these people. But startup leaders are driven people with cool stories, and that's what we do is we get to help tell those stories. And you guys too. Like, I talked to Howard last year as he was building this app, and it's like, yeah, damn, that sounds awesome. That makes total sense. That like you would go from that to that, and it sounds like it's going to be successful. And if you can like tell your friend a story and make your friend say, yeah, cool, damn, do that, then you're 90% of the way like on your PR journey, because you just need to think of these journalists as like, talk to them exactly like you talk to your buddy,
Yeah.
and your story is going to be great.
All right. Yeah. Joe's got me hyped. We're awesome.
For sure. For sure.
See how I did that?
This is not a paid PR.
Joe, you're in the EU, based in Germany, living there. How do PR strategies differ between regions, and how do you tailor your message for different audiences?
It's a good question, especially here in the EU, because we just have so many different cultures in a relatively small area compared to the US, which is like all English, all America over this huge geography. I would say first, all my clients want to be in the US. All of my clients want to get into US media. They want to get into US markets. So if you're already there, you made it. Like, you're doing the thing that they all want to be doing.
Yeah.
It's not 100% true for every industry. Like, obviously, Germany is great for deep tech and engineering and some of the things that Germans are well known for. But yeah, I would say the US is like the top market. And we tend to focus on English speaking, international media. We do work with US media outlets. A lot of our peeps are in the UK. So like English speaking media. And then the thing that we tell our clients is that the other geographies are oftentimes other media landscapes entirely. And that means more budget, right? So if somebody comes to me and they're like, we want to work with you and Black Unicorn, for example, and we're like, okay, we can do UK, we can do international. And they're like, and we want to go to Germany. Then we say, then you're going to have to pay for our German partners as well. And we have a nice network of other PR partners throughout the EU. And you really need to activate those local experts because the media landscapes are just vastly different. Like, one example would be fundraising, which is huge generally in English speaking media. Like, if you have a fundraising story as a startup, TechCrunch is going to cover it, whoever's going to cover it, because that's like startup news. German media is like, they don't cover startup, they don't cover fundraising. They're like, in a very German way, they're like, okay, you're a company, you raise money, that's what companies need to do. So what? They just don't cover that stuff. So you need to like, and we don't, even beyond just the language barrier, there's these kind of like localized differences of like what counts as newsworthy.
Sure.
And that just takes some nuance and some expertise to understand all those things. So in some ways, that's where PR gets expensive in the EU, right? Like, it's just a lot of geographies to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, I feel like we're just scratching the surface and we could talk about
Yeah.
this for hours, but we're gonna spare the audience and keep it tight for now. And but I'd love to have you back, Joe, to dive maybe into some of these specific topics a little bit deeper in the future, because it's super interesting, and the value of PR and getting ahead of it and the common pitfalls and just being able to stay authentic and consistent is just such a tough thing for people to do sometimes, and just being able to talk about that and strategies to make that happen, and just allowing people to be themselves is a good message. So I think it was awesome having you on the show today. We're going to wrap this thing up and look forward to episode 3. But Joe, thank you so much.
Great, you guys. Thanks for having me. It's been super fun. See you again.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
All right. So like you heard from Joe, PR isn't just for big companies. It's a powerful tool for startups and small companies as well. Don't catch yourself behind the 8 ball in a crisis and find yourself hiring a PR firm afterwards. Maybe get out ahead of that if you can. I think that's the lesson from today is, you just use it strategically. You don't have to spend a ton of money up front, but when you get it, you can be very strategic with it. There are affordable strategies to storytelling here. There are things that we can do in this space. So absolutely, lots of cool stuff on the episode today.
Most importantly, keep it authentic. That's
Yeah.
what we learned today.
Yeah.
Authenticity is key in resonating with the public.
Cool. Chris, you want to tee up next week? Because we have another guest coming up.
Definitely. We got the guests rolling in, and we're excited to have another guest on board for episode 3. Our next guest is going to be the lead developer that has helped JR and I bring WIFT to life and continue to scale WIFT into an amazing, innovative technology that's going to power meetings and events in the future. So super excited to have our lead developer, Sean, on episode 3. We're going to talk about a lot of things that we have coming down the pipeline and kind of where event tech is going. We're going to talk about maybe layering in AI to event tech potentially. So a lot of interesting topics that we'll be discussing with Sean, who has a lot of expertise in project management and leading projects in terms of technology and development. So super excited to have Sean on and pick his brain about all of the sideways rain that goes into development.
Yeah, let's get techie next week. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks to anybody that listened. Smash that subscribe button. We'd love to have you. All right, till next time.
See you later.